Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, Mike, November, Oscar, Papa, Quebec, Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, X-Ray, Yankee, Zulu. Hi, hello, I'm doing audio tests. Audio tests. Hello. Check 1, check 2, check. Hello, hello, hello. I have no idea what I'm doing today. I have no idea at all. We get background music. Yeah, background music. Cyberpunky background music stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Hooray. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, Mike, November, Oscar, Papa, Quebec, Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, X-Ray, Yankee, Zulu. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? Hello. I think we're good. Maybe. Is it good? Sounds... Nya. Nya, nya, nya. Nya, 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 nya. Hello, hello, nya. Alright, I think I've got everything working. Maybe. Let's find out. Hello, welcome, welcome. What are we doing today? I've got no idea. I've got no idea. I've got no idea. I do know that I am excited for Gura's birthday. It's his birthday 2023. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be fun. Probably gonna wind up watching the archive of that. This is gonna be a very short stream. Very short stream. Very short. We're gonna hang out for a little bit. Probably like an hour, hour and a half, you know. Give me a second, give me a second, give me a second. Bum bum. There we go. I sent the message wrong. No, I sent the message wrong. Oh no, I sent the message wrong. I did a dumb. Hello, I did a dumb. I did a dumb. Hello. So yes, what are we doing today? I have no idea. I've got no idea. So I think today is just gonna be kind of hanging out, relaxing out, and talking about a few things. So I've been looking at recent game releases to try and catch up and get an understanding as to what is going on with... Sorry, I forgot that I had Nanobyte's stream on when I was doing, like, my setup because I needed something for background noise, and I look over, and I just see Nanobytes on the ground, 3D model contorting and spinning and twisting and going eldritch. And all thoughts left my head. My brain is empty. I am filled with terror. I don't have the audio on, so I don't know what's going on with it, but it's just... why? Okay. Alright, sorry, brain's doing some things. So I have been looking into a bunch of different recent things that have been going on with the gaming community so far in terms of the big AAA releases that are coming out down the pipeline. We've got a few. I did say I was going to check out the Microsoft conference thing, and I did. I checked it out, and it was definitely interesting. I'm not sure on a lot of these, but I'd like to go over some of my thoughts on this business and what's really going through my head. let me double check here to get my stuff set back up here. Yeah, the game showcase from 2023. So they had Fable. I think Fable looks awful. I'm just gonna say it right now, it looks awful. Not interested. Gonna be skipping it most likely. I'm sure the gameplay is fine, but the character design is just kind of disappointing all around from what we saw there. I don't think, honestly, it's gonna be up my alley. Doesn't seem like it's gonna be anything for me. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty really has me excited. I'm really interested in what they're doing for, like, updates to it, fixes and whatnot. I remember that Phantom Liberty was one of those add-ons that I had been spammed with news about when it was first announced. I had a bunch of people just spamming me constantly, like, hey, are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited? Give us your thoughts. Are you excited? So my thoughts are, I don't like Johnny Silverhand in the base game, and I think that Morgan Blackhand would have been a much better character for Keanu Reeves to have played. What's good is that I'm just having a little relaxed day. We're doing some random stuff today. Good to see you, Eric. But yeah, I think that it would have been much nicer if Keanu Reeves had played Morgan Blackhand instead, and I think he probably would have been a less insufferable character. I find Johnny Silverhand and his portrayal in 2077 to be almost completely insufferable, and I'm kind of sad that we didn't get to see a more vital character show up. Like, I get it, they wanted to do the whole, like, psychic engram stuff and the storyline, and they had a very specific theory in mind on how to handle the character of V and whatnot. They had some political ideas that they wanted to get across, what have you, right? I get that. I just think that Silverhand was not really a good fit, and I think the story that they went with doesn't really feel cyberpunk. It feels a lot more Eclipse Phase. Like, it would be a fine story for an Eclipse Phase type setting, but for cyberpunk, it doesn't really fit the mood, it doesn't fit the vibe. And I'm glad that we can see something new, a brand new story for it. I am a little bit sad that we're getting the return of Johnny Silverhand, because I just don't like it. Like, I like Keanu Reeves, right? I like his performances. I like his work. I did not like Silverhand. At all. Give me a second here. I'm gonna sneeze. Robot sneezes. They're very loud. Very loud. I think that there were elements that were handled really well, and I think there were elements that were handled really poorly. The tutorial segment drug on quite a long time in 77, but hopefully these new revisions that they're doing to gameplay, the missions, the new areas, will be able to get some more exploration and get a different feel for things. Maybe they'll be able to fix a bunch, maybe they won't, who knows. Avowed got shown off as coming in next year. We got a teaser for that. I'm not exactly the most thrilled with random fantasy games, but I have to say the game doesn't look terrible from what images and trailers we've seen so far. Could be interesting. I gave Obsidian quite a lot of leeway when it came to their take on that whole sci-fi game that they did a while back. And I wasn't disappointed with it, I just wasn't, like, super enthralled. Which was kind of a disappointment, you know? Because, I mean, it's like, I played a lot of that game, but eventually you just get to a point where you're like, and you kind of put it down and you move on. And it was good fun for what I played of it. It was fine. I didn't agree with some of the story directions they wound up going, but overall, it was fine. It will be interesting to see how the team that Obsidian puts together for Avowed, or has put together, I should say, to see what's really going to be coming out of that. I think some of the designs are looking interesting enough, and hey, could be a nice little experience. It is a little bit interesting, and I'm wondering how long before we get the next post-apocalyptic alternative game, because it feels like they are kind of going down the route of, well, we had Bethesda do this, X, Y, and Z. What if we have Obsidian do slightly different approach to the same thing and see what we can get there, which it is an interesting idea. I'm not sure if that's what they were doing intentionally or if it's just, you know, explore out of here. And speaking of Bethesda, thinking about Bethesda, Starfield, I am more excited for now than I was before. I'm still not going to let myself get as hyped up as I had gotten for previous games in the past. I got super hyped up for New Vegas when that came out, super hyped up for Fallout 3 when that came out, though Fallout 3 I was also really angry with as well, but that's, you know, thing for a different time. Starfield, I think, shows some decent potential, could be interesting, and it is getting a lot of people angry, and I'm not entirely sure why, but hey, I do think that it'll be interesting modding potential if they keep the standards of just being able to mod as much as you want, because I think that the Bethesda games in general shine their best when you just ignore the base game and go into modding. That's one of the things I loved with Fallout 4 was I actually completed 100% of the game. I completed all the DLC, I completed all the base content, I completed everything, because I just kept getting sucked into mods. I didn't super enjoy the base game, but the mods that came out for it were so just lovely. And I'm hoping we can get a similar thing with this, where it's like, even if I don't necessarily like the story, I can really dive in head first into the mods from things and get that sort of, you know, nice experience that I'm really looking for. I'm really excited to see what they wind up doing with that. And that's, honestly, I think that's part of why I wasn't too big a fan of Obsidian's Outer Worlds, I think it was. Because Outer Wilds was the weird, like, lizard people thing where it's like a time cycle, right? I like that. That one was good. And I think Outer Worlds I would have been able to finish if it had had better mod support. Because it's like, there's always like some things that you can't really get your head around with some of this. I will say the faces in their design, in the application, the art style, feels very familiar with Starfield. Very familiar. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm feeling on the long-term front of it. That said, I mean, you know, it looks like a good base, and they've already got some, like, Wild West stuff thrown in there. It kind of honestly reminds me, in a weird way, it reminds me... Did any of you guys ever hear about the canceled Half-Life game, spin-off game, that was going to be set in space? The design of this and the style of it reminds me a lot of that, where Valve wanted to do that whole, can't even remember the name of the project. I'm pretty sure it didn't get past, like, design phase. But Valve had wanted to do, like, this Western space thing that was set in the Half-Life universe, where you'd go, like, exploring and trading and all this weird stuff. Then it wound up getting just shuttered completely. I'm pretty sure that and the Alex spin-off thing wound up eventually contributing ideas towards, wound up eventually contributing ideas towards, Half-Life Alyx. I do have to say that there are some interesting designs that we've seen so far. I get some Warhammer 40k vibes, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Or more specifically, I get some Giger vibes. Some HR Giger vibes from some of these, and that's always a fun thing. I am hopeful that it is... that when it launches, I'm able to play it, unlike Fallout 4, which I pre-ordered and could not play for like a month because you couldn't get past the tutorial. Because the in Fallout 4 they had the vault that you get through, right? And there's a computer that you have to access to leave the vault, and it wouldn't actually let you control the computer. So I couldn't keep going. I'm covering the Microsoft stuff right now because that's the one that I was, you know, it's the one that I was personally interested in just because it has a few companies that I'm really interested in, and it has a few games that I'm really interested in. Which Fallout was this? Fallout 4 was the one where you had the pre-war section that you go through, right? And then you go to the vault, and when you get out of the vault, you watch the cutscene, you do your thing. There was a console you had to use to show you a tutorial for, like, this is how consoles work. Access this, and you'll be able to do this, and this does that, and then you'll be able to get out of the room. But it wouldn't play the animation properly for that specific console. And it took a while for that to get fixed. The interesting thing that people don't realize with Gamebryo that's the base engine that's being used for Bethesda games, is that patching is not the easiest thing in the world. There's new BSAs that have to be released. There's a lot of files you just have to add on in a weird way, and extra stuff that doesn't really gel well with an update system. That said, I will say I'm excited with their new space game, Starfield. I always forget the names. It's such a generic name, but I keep forgetting it. Hello, Monty. We're talking about, right now, the Xbox Games Showcase. I'm excited about the new one because Microsoft has the rights to the base engine that Gamebryo was made off of, and they have access to every one of the off-branches that was made from the Gamebryo base engine. If there was any company in the entire industry that I would like to have Bethesda under, it would honestly be Microsoft, just because of that access you can get, not to the modded version that they licensed, but to the original, like, cores here, the offshoots, all of the different fixes that have been made over the years. People don't understand that an engine being old is not necessarily, on its own, a bad thing. If you know everything that goes into the engine, if you have the teams that are masters of working with the engine, then it becomes a wonderful boon, right? I would sooner have a team that is a master of a bad engine than a team who are completely incompetent with a good engine. You know what I mean? Like, that's my personal thing with this. Like, because if you have a team that is masters of that engine, and you can fix it, you can work it, you can change it, you can mold it, you are going to have such a better end-line experience, I think, personally, than a team who's, like, just doesn't understand anything about a fantastic engine. You'll still have a decent experience. Hello, Talan. Hello, Almonte. Hello, hello, hello. And I think that there's really good potential here because you've got a lot of heavy hitters in the industry who are being able to have access to that. You can tell that the one I'm excited most about here is Starfield. I am really, really excited about Starfield. Anthem, yeah. Honestly, Anthem is a good example of having a pretty good engine and just not necessarily having the team that you need to get the results that you need. And that's nothing against, honestly, that is nothing against the people themselves. It's just to say the engine that was utilized was not the best choice for the job just because the team was not, you know, proper with that. I'm talking about, in general, the Xbox Games Showcase, but Starfield's really the only one that super caught my imagination, caught my eye, caught my attention. We had just talked a little bit about Avowed, but that's not really my setting, and a little bit ago we talked about Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty, which I'm excited about, but again, I don't have as much to say about it because 77 was not really something that I was super into, right? Physics are FPS dependent? Yeah, I'd heard that. I'd also heard the typical statements coming out of the typical folks about artistic vision as a cover for certain things. Now, that said, like I said, as I was saying, Brain, thank you for doing filler language instead of getting to the actual point. Wow. I am hopeful, perhaps naively hopeful, that by having it under Microsoft, having access to the original code, having access to the fixes of these other systems, and Microsoft actually stepping in themselves, as opposed to leaving Bethesda to kind of flounder, we may have an experience that is hopefully a little more cohesive at launch than some of the other ventures that they've done in the past. Can you tell I'm trying to be optimistic? I'm really trying to be optimistic. I hope. Wouldn't trust anyone else to use the creation engine, same as Skyrim. Honestly, like, Microsoft's, as I was saying, Microsoft's the best hands to put them into just because they know it, they've worked with it, they own the licensing to it. You've got Bethesda, who really, really knows the engine well. Was it 30-part? I thought, I was pretty sure it's going to be consoles, but I believe that it is FPS dependent. It is everywhere right now. Now, I will say that's probably not going to stick, because even with, if you guys remember back in, Oh, I can't remember how long ago. But one of the Need for Speed games, they had a similar issue with the FPS being locked to the physics. And there are fixes you can actually do to that are not the hardest thing in the world to apply. So that might honestly be like it's everywhere on launch, but then it gets fixed shortly after launch. Or it could already be fixed day one. Because we legitimately don't know with a lot of those things. I've seen in the past, right? Because that was a big issue we had with... There was an age. And I'm sad that it's still to this day where everything was locked to the power of your computer. It's locked to the FPS you're running it at. It's locked to this, that. I don't even care if the game is going to be good or not. I just love that it's going to be single player and moddable. Exactly. And that's what I was talking about as well. I completed all of Fallout 4, not because I loved the story. The story was pretty bad. I completed it because it had lovely mod support. There was a decent framework in terms of the gunplay. The game felt pretty nice when you just locked out a lot of the choices there and just went for the thing. And I still completed it in spite of the Mass Effect style interface. That is one thing I've got to say. Have we seen the... I can't remember. Have we seen the chat interface for this one? For Starfield? Have we seen the chat interface? Because I can't remember if we have. Haven't most of Bethesda's Fallouts and later Elder Scrolls been launched at 30 FPS? I believe so. I think in this case it was basically they wanted the consoles to be able to have the wow factor. Okay, yeah, that's probably it then. I know that even the old ones, you'd be able to unlock them using the console command. So if nothing else, you can probably unlock them in console and then use... Oh, what's the command? There's a command to... There's a series of commands you can basically use to kind of fix the physics a bit. Where you effectively not decouple it, but recouple it to a different. Oblivion was, but modding it past 60 breaks the game? Ah, okay. But yeah, I hope they don't bring back the Mass Effect style chat system, and I can't remember if they had it. My brain has been locked on a few different things, so I've been kind of refocusing on a few different angles here. But I am excited for Starfield. I'm gonna get it. Probably not as a pre-order, but probably shortly after launch I'll snag it. Just to make sure that I've got that, like, week or so, maybe. If I wind up thinking that it'll be great content for the channel, I might set aside, like, a day or two post-launch, or maybe even the day of launch, just to try it out. But we'll see closer to when they're dropping that. Which I am surprised that it's coming out as soon as it is. I really genuinely am. I was expecting another, like, year or so on delay. What if they're going to be a voice protagonist? I hope not. I hope not. I seriously hate voice protagonists in an RPG. You know why I hate that? Especially when it's one that's reliant on mods. Do you know how much of a pain in the ass it is as a modder to sit down and find a way to work with the voice protagonist that only has a certain amount of lines? Hello, good evening, my friend. Welcome to the chat. Do you know how hard it is a modder, though, to work on a game? We do have, like, to an extent that can be made easier, however, with the use of artificial intelligence, but it's still an unnecessary step. By leaving the character unvoiced, you are dramatically reducing the cost of the game. Because if you have that main character voiced, and you have customization, you are going to need at least 2 different voice actors, a voice actor and an actress. You're going to maybe want to have more actors than that. You're going to have all of these little issues where you're going to have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of lines with the same actor and actress. And if anything happens to compromise that actor-actress, you're screwed. The good thing with having an unvoiced protagonist is that you don't have to worry about scandal or something else or tragedy taking away the main character of your game. Whereas if you have an NPC and the actor or actress who plays them or voices them, even a main NPC, you can kill them off. and the game can continue. You really can. You can swap out the character with someone else. You can do whatever. You aren't hard locked. If your main character dies, if your main actor for your main character dies, you are up shit creek without a paddle. I'm gonna say that right now. You are screwed. Having a voiced protagonist will screw you over so hard in an RPG. Because no matter what you do, you're never going to be able to fully, satisfactorily replace that main character's actor or actress if they die or go to jail or have some scandal. And then you can't make expansions, you can't make DLC, you see the issue here? You're locking yourself out. On top of screwing over the modding scene, on top of screwing over everything. It is just a much more stable and relaxed way to go for it, and a more reasonable way to go for it if you're going to be doing an RPG. Now, an FPS is different, right? You don't need to have him voicing that much. You can keep him mostly quiet, have some voiced lines here and there, have some cutscenes. Easier situation to work with. But an RPG, where that is your character, you're going to stay as that character, you really don't want to take unnecessary risks with locking yourself out from able to do more content. Especially considering the shelf life of a modern game being as long as it is. Yeah, no, you want to make sure that you have the options available to you to get to a better spot to be able to keep that running for longer. I would also say, again, that as an RPG, it's really nice to decide how you delivered it. You know what I mean? Look at the full dialogue, see the full thing of what you're gonna say, get an understanding of, I know how my character will deliver this, and then you see the character's reactions around it based off the text, and you can figure out how it was actually supposed to be without, well, let's see, 3 words or sometimes 1 word saying a rough idea, and then it goes from, like, let's put this example. You have 3 options. One is, hi. One is, hello. One is, how are you? Oh, man. Hello seems, like, more formal. Hello there, fuckface, how you doing? I'm gonna kick your ass and kill you and murder your family. Whoa, okay, I didn't mean that. Well, that was the negative option, because we've got an affirmative, a negative, and a hostile, and you picked the hostile action. But he just said hello. How is a hello hostile? You get what I'm saying, at? And that kind of stuff can be a direct result of having a voiced protagonist. Yeah, the sarcasm voice options, yeah. I mean, it's a personal thing. We got Compulsion Games' South of Midnight that also got a reveal, which, honestly, I don't know. Cool art style enough, but the people look really weird in terms of their design. You know what I mean? Again, we've got this weird, like, modern issue with this. Yeah, the sarcasm voiced options that have no effect on gameplay. I've seen that a lot. South of Midnight, I think that Compulsion Games, they did We Happy Few before, and We Happy Few had wonderful premise, wonderful promise, and it could not deliver on what was promised. What it did deliver was okay, but it wasn't anything revolutionary. It was just kind of there. So I'm not super excited for South of Midnight. I like the world aesthetic, right, that we've seen so far. Character aesthetic is lacking. I'm hopeful. We're finally getting Star Wars Outlaws. Or is that the... Is that the one that was canceled? Or is that not the one that was canceled? Because I remember there was the Ubisoft one before, right? There was the Ubisoft Star Wars one that we had heard about before, right? That had, like, the bounty hunter? It's like, I can't tell if that's connected to it, or is that connected to the other one, and I'm just like, I don't know on that one. Yeah, 1313, yeah, 1313. Is this not that? Is this not, this isn't that, right? Because, like, it's another Ubisoft open world game, and I think we all know Ubisoft open world games. They are lovely little time sinks. Lovely little time sinks. You'll get some good gameplay, you'll get a lot of content that isn't necessarily required for the game, and you'll have an experience that's okay. I mean, I can't really say that any of the Ubisoft games have been, like, just horrible. Okay, 1313 was Young Boba Fett game, so maybe? Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know with that one. That one, it's like, it's a Ubisoft game. It'll be a Ubisoft game. Forza Motorsports, I hope that Forza Motorsports is actually going to have proper audio engineering. I don't like the fact that it's just called Forza Motorsports because I hate the reboots, right? Have you figured out what you're doing yet? Right now we're doing coverage of the Xbox Game Showcase before we move on to something else. Anything else. I think the last few Forza games have been fine, but I think the audio engineering has been a little bit lacking, and I really hope that the new game has as much of a focus on the audio engineering as it has on really good graphics, because honestly, these days, I think graphics have gotten to a point where if the graphics capabilities never improved, I wouldn't care, because I just want people to go back to focusing on graphics style instead of graphics fidelity. Yet the audio engineering on a racing game is more important than the visual fidelity in general. You need to feel like you're in that car. You need to feel that thing. The gameplay physics, the car physics, these are the important things to let you feel like you're gripping the track, like you're racing through your driving. I like racing. I like driving. I like doing, like, closed circuit racing. I like doing street racing in a legal variety, obviously. I would never dream of doing anything not legal. But I like racing. I love racing. Racing was always a passion of mine. And so many of these games get the audio engineering wrong, and I don't care how good the game looks visually if it doesn't sound right, and it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't drive right, if you don't get your speed proper. You don't think that Star Wars Outlaws has anything to do with 1313? Ah, well, that's a shame. Hey, maybe we'll still get 1313 someday. Who knows? But Forza, some of those, I think 5? Wasn't it 5? No, that was Horizons 5 that had the really good audio engineering. I think it was. Dude, half this stuff just kind of blends together because, like, so many of them are, oh, hey, this looks pretty good, but the audio engineering is eh. I really want a racing game that has that good feel. Maybe some, like, options to change the difficulty up and down, get some different, like, tweaking of what you want, race a bunch of oddball cars. Because, I mean, I like classics, and I'll be honest, that's more of a thing to me than the modern vehicles. But, hey. Okay. So, we also had that new game from In Exile. That Clockwork game. I don't know too much about it. The fact that they said in due time for when it's coming, and the fact of just what you're seeing, some of that, what we're seeing with the videos and info and whatnot, there's not enough to know almost anything about it. The steampunk theme I really like, though I kind of think steampunk is a little bit played out, but at the same time could be fun. Could be fun. Not sure long-term what the game is going to turn out as, but hey. The guys who made, the folks who made Persona 3, 4, and 5 are doing a brand new game. New world. Don't have much to say on it. Yeah, he wants to drive what he drove in his youth. The Ford Model T. Are you kidding me? The Ford Model T. No. Let me get you a picture. Give me a second here. Yeah, there she is. There she is. Where are you, you little... Let me show you what I drove when I was a kid, you little buggers. The ultimate in vehicular driving. The most incredible vehicle ever designed. A beauty beyond compare. This baby
had such great horsepower, such great resources, such great everything. You're gonna love this thing.
Okay, let me just bring up the picture here. Okay, you guys ready for this? You guys ready to see the ultimate car? The greatest vehicle ever? Boom! There you go. That's what I drove when I was a kid. It's the patent Motorwagen. It's the patent Motorwagen. Oh, it's a little three-wheel. It's so... that is very German, actually. Very, very German. Mercedes, it's the Benz, before they joined Mercedes-Benz. And it is a beautiful little thing. Look at it. Look at it. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And I love it. And it's great. Look at the steering controls. It doesn't have a wheel. It's got a little pedal. It's great. Carl Benz, the man was a genius. And look at his lovely vehicle. Good old Benz. But yes, all I can see is a Queen Guard chasing me in this. Oh, man. But yeah, we got a new game from the folks who did Persona 3, 4, and 5. Its art style's pretty decent, I guess. I don't know. I'll wait to give judgment on that one until I know a bit more about it. A lot of these are reveal trailers and what have you, and announcement trailers. What? We've got 33 Immortals is coming out. I don't really have much to say about it. I kind of like the art style on it, but it feels a little bit flat to me. I feel like it could use a bit more depth to the images. Bet you could really feel the wind on your hair driving in that thing. Oh, sorry, Himawari. Well, I couldn't now, but you realize before I was a robot, I had hair, right? Before I was a robot, I had hair. My magnificent mustache, my beautiful, beautiful hair and long flowing locks, majestic beard, the incredible me that once was. They didn't even give Pro a fourth wheel. Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy, ain't it? But yeah, we've got 33 Immortals. The art style feels a little bit flat to me, but I think that overall it looks like it could have some pretty decent gameplay depending. Looking over it, it feels artistically a bit more like Wrath of the Lamb in terms of the flatter colors and what have you. Enemy designs on that one are interesting enough. I do kind of like some of the aspects there on the aesthetics, but I don't know. I've never been like mega big a fan of like co-op games. I've never been like the biggest fan of them. They just don't keep my interest. We did get the Payday 3 gameplay, which I had forgotten Payday existed. I'm gonna be honest. Again, the graphics are going for that hyper-realistic look that doesn't really have... It kind of lacks style, but it is realistic. I just think that the games that last generations, the games that stay looking good, right, are the games that have a style, not the games that are hyper-realistic. You know what I mean? A game that looks good forever is a game that has a very unique style that is coherent within itself. Okami still looks really good. The Zelda, like, cel-shaded ones, those ones, they still look pretty good, right? You don't have style. You're right, I currently really don't. And I want to change that. But there's a bunch of games that look good because they have a really firm and steady style, and the modern, like, Play-Doh look that so many games go with, right? That you can make scenery look really good. You can make a lot of things look really good, and the second you get actual people, it falls apart because they just either go completely uncanny valley or they try to avoid it and they just get these really weird looking models that just don't work. We've also got Persona 3 Reloaded, or Persona 3 Reload, which is coming out, which is, I am not a big fan of remakes, but hey, from what I've seen of it, it's only like a 1 minute, 9-second thing. The graphics look decent, but then again, Persona 3 already looked pretty good. I think some of the up-resing and whatnot is turning out pretty good. UI looks fine. It's fine. But my scan face models, I think, honestly, even if you have face scan in your game, you can still have a game that has a really good style if you don't just use the face scan or just try to tweak it slightly to be not Uncanny Valley. Even if you scan the person just completely, I think you can still get some pretty good looks there. There are some that did the rotoscoping stylation, and I think that rotoscoping is an amazing style, especially if you're going with, like, the super high-end scanning anyway. It's like, well, try using some creative art styles. Figure out what worked, what sold before. Figure out different ways that you can utilize these things. We've also got Persona 5 Tactica that's coming out as well on the subject of the Persona stuff. Art style, that's fine. It's another tactics game. Looks like another one of those, I don't even know. What's the genre there? Because you've got Fire Emblem, Advanced Wars, this, the new games that they were doing for the reboot XCOM series. So many games doing that same sort of thing where you're doing the move around. I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly that, but that's really the feel I got with that. Tactics games? Yeah, because they had, like, Final Fantasy Tactics, right? But that, I've never been the most massive fan of that stuff. But they're fine. They're fine. You could call them XCOM clones, I guess, but for me, XCOM is UFO, Enemy Unknown, and UFO Terror from the Deep. Which are very different games, despite having the same sort of titles and whatnot. Also, the UFO series that got released that was literally a UFO clone, which was actually really nice. I loved those. Those looked terrible. The art style on those ones looked bad, right? Like, really bad. They had low-budget graphics. They really tried to reach farther than they could. But, man, that gameplay was satisfying. The gameplay loop was good. Driving them around. That felt like a proper sort of, like, XCOM successor for that stuff. Though the newer XCOM stuff has its own appeal, it's not XCOM anymore, which isn't bad. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and 8-2 were fun. Yeah, no, they were fun. I can have fun with these, and I will probably, honestly, have fun with Persona 5 Tactica. I sometimes wonder, especially when I see some of these games, if they're best suited for the gameplay style that's being utilized for them. You know what I mean? Am I alone in that or no? Where you just wonder, is this the optimal way this game could have been done here? Or is it being done a certain way for marketability? You know what I mean? Which marketability is good, but I'll tell you right now, a good game is going to give you cheaper marketing. A game that's good is going to be easier to market than a game that is what already works across the board. Now, I know that a lot of what I say with that sounds like it's sort of contradicting itself, right? Well, you said look at what works and, like, iterate on that, right? Yes, to an extent, but everything's a tool in the toolbox. And you need to understand that there is a time and place for everything, and I wonder if there's a bit of a weird dichotomy where you have simultaneously people who throw out the foundation entirely and just say, destroy everything, build fresh, the past is dead, kill it if you have to. Which is a quote that I make from the new Star Wars trilogy, not because I agree with that quote, but because I think it summarizes a few things fairly nicely. I also don't super like those new trilogy, but I find it fairly summarizes some of the theories that are out there on modern design on a lot of things. But we simultaneously have those, where you've got people who are discarding outright what came before. And yet at the same time, you've got the people who are so firmly tying on to, this is popular, we need to do exactly this thing without burgeoning at all, that it feels like we have one group who want to make tires rectangular
but they really hate the idea of going from a unicycle to a bicycle because the unicycles have been selling well. You know what I mean? Like, that's a weird way to explain it, but it's the best way I can think to explain it at all. It's strange. And Persona 5 Tactica, I have not seen enough to truly know that, right? Like, I mean, we had that Mario one a little ways back, right? The Mario and Rabbids thing. That was decent. It was fine, right? Yeah. Fun little time waster, little time sink. It was decent. But overall, it was just kind of, you know, didn't bring anything new to the table, didn't really have to. And honestly, if Persona 5 Tactica does what it does well, maybe that'll be enough. You know what I mean? Again, I like the art style, the sort of chibi look to it, the big-headed weirdness can kind of have its own appeal. I don't know about some of the enemy designs, but I'll see more of it as I go. See if these got a Monkey Island crossover. I have no investment in that. They showed a bunch of new stuff about the Flight Simulator 2024, which... They're doing a Dune crossover, but they're doing the Thopters from the new one, which is like, fine, cool. I kind of like the idea that they are expanding into potentially military ordnance, but I doubt they'll give you the military ordnance access. Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. I have no investment in that one. I had no investment in the original, I'm gonna be honest. It was just kind of... Sure, it looks good in a trailer, but I've got no opinion on it, really. Although I will say the animation that they do with it is very heavily leaning into Uncanny Valley in a way that I don't know. Something about it looks like it went wrong. You know what I mean? And again, with the, like, we're not really doing a style, we're trying to be reality. And I don't think we're ever really going to get to the point where you can have just reality look good in a game. The other one that I was interested in is there's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which hey, Yakuza's great. Is Infinite Wealth the one that Kei-san managed to get into, or no? Am I wrong with that one? Because I heard people talking about Kei-san managing to get, like, some sort of acting role with it, or... I have to say that the Infinite Wealth trailer editing is so perfectly classic comedy. I love how it's edited. I love how it's put together. It is pretty hilarious. Though, it does remind me of a lot of the old, like, classic shows, and I am confused where it's going. Because the trailer... Apparently the game is going to be set in Hawaii, and that's not really what I want from... Hawaii is not really what I want from Yakuza. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe that's weird to me. Maybe that's silly, but Hawaii is not... Could be fun. I'll wait to see the gameplay on it. It's supposed to come out next year. Another thing that I'm actually excited about, which I know I shouldn't be, but damn it, I can't help myself. Fallout 76 is getting an expansion. Fallout 76 is getting an expansion. I hate that I love it so much. I hate the game, but I keep playing it. I hate that I enjoy it as much as I do. I got the game for free, right? I got the game for free back in the day. And is it free to play now, or do they charge it? Oh, not you too? Dude, I haven't played it in ages, just because So I played it shortly after launch. I played it fairly early on, and it was like, oh, this is awful. Then I found myself coming back to it, and I came back to it, and I came back to it, and I'm just like, okay, this is not a game that is great, but man, for like 10-15 minutes at a time, it is nice. I think the most I've ever played it at a time was like 4 hours for a collab that I had to do, but for like really short bursts of just, hey guys, we're gonna hop on, and then you're just like, okay, cool. You hop on, you shoot some stuff, you mess around, you do something like some special event, and it's fine. I love it because of the Dragoon rifle. So, I also loved it because of some of the bugs. There was something called the Dragoon rifle, which is a 4-shot musket. I would dress myself up in a Confederate uniform with the muskets, and I played through as much of the game as I possibly could, only ever using the muskets, the musket pistols, and black powder weaponry in general. I refused to use anything other than black powder weaponry, and we had a group of 4 of us who would just get together and use black powder weaponry and dress up in vintage clothing and try to beat the content using black powder weapons. It was great. And it used to be that there was a bug with the Civil War Gatling cannon that was in the game, where if you switched between the Civil War Gatling cannon and the musket, the Dragoon, it would accidentally change your capacity. It was also limited to black powder weaponry after his IRL felony conviction. Oh man, is that some new lore? Are you dropping some new lore on my chat that I wasn't aware of? Is that some new lore that I wasn't aware of? I'm a wanted felon in 36 planets. Guys, don't tell anybody on the other planets that I'm here. Luckily, I know that Earth doesn't have access to intergalactic communications yet, so I should be fine. I should be fine, okay? It's only like 36 or 37 planets. Though I am a felon on over 109 different planets. In total. I have been, but I'm not right now. It's only 36 right now. Is this why you keep shooting golf ball-sized holes in me? Maybe? But yeah, the weapon that you had, if you had the Gatling cannon and the Dragoon musket, because almost nobody was using it, you'd be able to get... I'm gonna blast radio waves in this. No, you're not. No, you're not. Don't you snitch on me. Don't you snitch on me. You're all going down if I go down. But if you switched it, you'd be able to set your capacity on the multi-shot musket to your Gatling gun, which means you'd be able to fully automatic fire the 4-shot musket. And you could combo multi-shot, you could combo explosive, and you could get your combos up there to do more damage with a single shot of the 4-shot musket than you'd be able to do with the mini nuke launcher per shot. And you'd have the fire speed of, because of how they handled it, you'd have a fire speed that was about twice as high as the actual minigun. Just as the Founding Fathers intended, exactly. And I remember showing up to one of the big raids, and everybody was laughing. They're laughing because I show up with just this piss-poor little musket and my little uniform, and I don't have any armor on or anything else, and I just walk ahead, and everybody's just like, dude, you're gonna aggro, you're gonna aggro, you're gonna aggro, you're gonna aggro. And I'm just like, okay. I killed him in like 3 seconds, and everybody's just like, well, that's no fun. I'm like, well, you shouldn't have been bitching at me, huh? Because you could actually just keep firing the thing until the weapon broke, which the weapon would break fairly fast, so you'd have to keep several of them in your inventory and rotate them out like some sort of pirate. Oh, hey, cool, I broke one. Well, swap the inventory, get the next one. Oh, I broke it. Swap the inventory, get the next one. Oh, I broke it. So I had... I had a dozen of these things and repair kits on my inventory, and it's just like, alright, this is what we're doing today. Just going through the countryside, and you just occasionally see people just kind of stop
and just be like, because the voice chat was always on, right? And you have no idea how many times in those early days when it was just like, or I just hear like confused noises or people laughing as I'm just this unarmored guy, no armor, walking through the wasteland with my musket, finding big old monsters that were massively over my level because they didn't have the level scaling yet back then. Now they do this like everybody scales your level and it's kind of lame, but eh. But back in the day, it was just like, you'd go into like these ultra high level areas as a low level character with your muskets, and you're just like, everybody else is just laughing until the minute you're just like, oh, you're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh, are you? You ain't seen nothing yet. Just a bullet hose, because you just can't keep anything straight. Hello, Pizza Man. But yeah, the Atlantic City expansion I'm interested in. I'll probably play it for like an hour or two. And that'll probably be about it. I'm going to play that off stream, because that's not a game I really enjoy streaming, and I don't necessarily want to like sit down and get a brand new account just so I can show you guys, because the name on my account is tied to other things. Path of the Goddess. Hey. Path of the Goddess came out, and it's... The gameplay trailer came out for it. It's got a decent looking art style, which, you know, I like the sort of weird glowy gooey thing, which is interesting. I like the sort of the Japanese style aesthetic, the samurai sort of look with it. I find it interesting. It's kind of cool. The general animation style looks pretty nice. I do wonder if it's gonna be very, what's the word? It seems like a feudal Japanese version of, what's that space game everybody was playing? Warframe. Feels like kind of a more horror, yokai-inspired thing just from the suit design. The gameplay looks pretty nice, though. It's got that sort of set-back camera. It's got a decent look to it. I'm kind of excited about it in a way, but I want to see long-term what winds up doing with it. I like the models when they don't have their faces exposed, I'm going to be honest with you. Capcom has had some interesting games over the years. I'm excited about it to an extent, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to do with that. The Banner Saga guys are doing a brand new game, which is going to be interesting. It's got some pretty colors, it's got some good art style. You know, I'm not entirely sure on... The shading on it looks a little bit weird, because they're doing that sort of, I don't want to say ray trace style lighting, but it kind of, like, there's an artistic style clash in it that I'm not too big a fan of. It kind of... I don't want to say mobile feel, right? I don't want to say that, but that's kind of how I feel when I'm looking at it. It's got that sort of off-putting mobileness to it in just how the lighting has been done. The base models themselves are very flat colors, very simple, very cartoony, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but... Because the model designs themselves, the modeling on them, the general sort of aesthetic on how they're working on that front, that's pretty cool, right? Like, I like some of the detail that they're putting on them. I like some of the basic color work, but I wouldn't call any of it texture work. It's very flat textures, very... It feels very flat. And the shading that they put on top of it is not exactly the most enthralling, but I have to say, I think it could be interesting just from looking at it, depending on how they wind up going that route. And it is a showcase trailer. They're apparently going to be releasing in 2024, so I'm hopeful that they rework the shading on it to be... Honestly, I'd like the shading to be more hard defined. The shading, the shadows, they're too soft. You know what I mean? They're too soft. They're too... They feel off.
And I'm not sure how to really describe that other than it just feels mobile game. I don't know. It feels mobile, which I don't think you should really have. We got a short trailer for Still Wakes the Deep, which, I mean, we don't really know much about it. It looks cool. Reminds me of a lot of, like, Soma. It actually reminds me a lot of Soma. Reminds me a lot, visually, of those sort of exploration games, those walking sims, as people used to call them. I am interested. I'm intrigued. I'd like to see if that is gameplay or trailer, though. You know what I mean? It's the official reveal trailer, so it might not actually be telling us much. I don't know what style of game it's going to be doing. It's got the shimmy stuff, the shoving down things. I'm worried whenever I see a game that has shimmying in the trailer, mostly because that has become associated and ingrained in my mind with that, I can't even remember the name of it. The one that was made by the Dead Space devs that we all got super hyped up for, at least I got super hyped up for. I got super hyped for it, and then there was just so much waiting, so much just time, where you're just waiting for something to progress, right? And we've got Dungeons of Hinterberg, which is Callisto Protocol. That's the one, right? Callisto Protocol was one that I was like, it looks decent. The designs are nothing to write home about. The gameplay just feels like it's been padded. If you cut out all the padding from Callisto Protocol, if you tightened it up, I feel like it needed an editor. You know what I mean? It's like certain manga and anime, where it just feels as if you cut out, if you just did a supercut, cut out all of the like extra filler and the stuff that's supposed to pad out the gameplay to get it into a longer runtime. If this thing was condensed down into maybe a 4-hour experience, right? And I know people are frustrated with like, why would you ever pay $60 for a 4-hour experience? Because I don't have the time for a 100-hour experience. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't have the, sorry, I might have the time for a 100-hour experience, but not like 1,000 of them. You know what I mean? Sometimes a nice 4-hour game where you get in, you get your point across, you fight some monsters, you experience some cool stuff. Sometimes that's all you really need, but man, just everything in there felt like the only punishment was losing time. And you guys have seen my videos, right? You guys know the one sin in gaming that I can't really forgive is wasting my time. And if I can get tricked into not realizing I'm wasting my time, that's fine, right? I am fine with it if it's like, oh, you realize after the fact, well, I wasted so much time. Well, it didn't feel like a waste of time at the time, and that is fine, right? But that feels it. You feel it every time you're sitting there, crawling through the vents, crawling, wait, spam the button while we wait, watch a cutscene while we wait. And I'm hopeful, just to finish this thought, I'm hopeful Still Wakes the Deep does not have any of that problem. You know what I mean? I'm hoping it's just a cool little, like, concise, to the point, fun story that has maybe some good gameplay, maybe some good puzzles, because even if it's a game that is just one of those, like, walking sim type games, I don't necessarily mind one of those if it has good puzzles, if it has good atmosphere, good design, a good sort of build-up, proper storytelling. That's kind of stuff you can add together where you get to a point where it's like, okay, cool. This has come back around to being a game again. Dungeons of Hinterberg is going for the cel-shaded style. That one's coming out as well. That one's coming out sometime early 2024. Looking over it, it's an interesting application of cel shading that feels a bit more Borderlands in a way. They've got the, I think I'm thinking that because of the floating numbers. Enemy design looks fairly decent. Character design looks okay. It feels like it's missing something again. You know what I mean? I do like that it has style of its own. I do kind of like something about it, though. Feels like clashing styles in a way that makes me a little bit uncomfortable looking at it. You know what I mean? There's some of that clash on there, and you've got some of the stuff that's really nice, high-res, nice and cool looking, mixed with really, really flat colors. And the thickness of the cell shading feels like it could be worked on, but a lot of this stuff that I'm seeing here with this one would be fairly easy to just tweak a little bit, and depending on how the gameplay actually feels, gameplay looks fun, game looks good. That stuff, again, I can't comment on how the game actually feels, I can comment on how it looks looking at a trailer, right?
I kind of like some of the aesthetic with it. I think that I would like to see what it looks like with a slightly different cell shading methodology behind it. And I will be interested to see what comes out of it when it moves forward. Elder Scrolls Online gets a new expansion. I don't really know anything about Elder Scrolls Online. And then we got the one that kind of blindsided me. October 24th, City Skyline 2. Considering how many hundreds and hundreds of dollars of DLC was coming out for that, I thought we were just going to have City Skylines 1 forever. You know what I mean? Like, I thought we were just going to have that forever, and eventually we just release, like, hey, here's a new expansion you can buy that improves the graphics or does this, that, the other. I am worried with City Skylines 2, since we've got a brand new one that's coming out, right? The game looks gorgeous, right? From what we've seen. But we're not seeing the gameplay, we're seeing a trailer for the thing, right? It looks gorgeous, but that's not gameplay, that's trailer, right? And I am worried that we'll have the same issue that we had back with The Sims. Do you guys remember The Sims strategy? Where you had The Sims 1, which added a bunch of really cool expansions and all this cool content. The Sims 2 resets the slate clean, adds the old content slowly over time, then adds new, and then every single time you're buying the new game, you're basically losing all of those features you had for your expansions and your DLC, and then being sold them again and again and again. And I hope City Skylines 2 doesn't do that, but if they don't do that, then they're missing out on money. They're leaving money on the table. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. What can you add to it? What can you improve to it? Is it going to be a graphical update? Is this going to be something that really warrants being called City Skylines 2? I hope so. I really do. Are we going to be able to use our old DLC with the new game? I can almost guarantee not. It'd be a strange, new, like, groundbreaking thing if it's like, hey, you know your City Skylines 1 DLC? Yeah, we're gonna port over content from 1 to 2, and you can buy it direct on 2, or you can use it from 1. That would never happen, but that'd be fascinating to try. Because I think that sometimes when you do with simulators, right, especially in this world of constant DLC, it's like, how do you possibly live up to the fact that your previous game had so much content added in with the new one? You know what I mean? Like, do you completely rework the mechanics to make it more accurate to running a city? Which would be interesting. I'd kind of like a hyper, ultra realistic city management simulator where we can have every single aspect proper. I've said for years that I like the idea of have a ultra complicated game, but have your ultra complicated game actually have the options for automation. Not necessarily make it simpler, but make it automated, where it's like, hey, I'm going to hire these people who can do my thing for me, and they've got their stats and their ambitions that they're going to do, so I can delegate these things to a side for me. But that is a pain in the ass to code AI-wise. That said, the AI technology is getting better all the time, so we may start seeing some games that do that kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, you can have it super complex where you're running every single little sub-detail yourself and micromanaging everything, or you can hire these employees who will run it for you, but they may not run it exactly the way you want, unless you hire somebody who's got the personality you're looking for. I insanely doubt that would ever come to City Skylines. It'd be cool. They're not going to go that route. But hey, it'll be interesting to see that the art style is, again, leaning a bit too hard on the ultra realism. Honestly, I think it'd be kind of cool if they leaned on the miniatures aesthetic. You know what I mean? Like you're looking at, instead of doing the ultra, like, super realistic, real-world photograph style weirdness, if instead you were able to do, like the miniatures that they used for buildings, right?
Like, I think that'd be a cool aesthetic for a city builder game. You have it look like it's miniatures. So it's like you got the little set piece down there. And you could allow that to simplify some of your stuff and use it as a hiding piece for some of the different elements that you've got there. So you no longer have to worry about, hey, why isn't this realistic? Well, it's a miniatures set. You'd have yourself a little shield you could use. You'd have yourself some leeway you could do to maybe the game looks really good in some areas and not so good in others, because you could simplify some bits. It's like, oh, that was a different construction material, right? I think that kind of thing would be better than going for the ultra realistic business. Yasant is coming from Don't Nod, and that's the final one on this listing here. Let's see. What you got? Yasant? What you got? I didn't actually see this one before. Decent looking, weird sort of claymation, almost art style. Very... Actually, that's kind of cool. I know I was saying, like, I don't like people looking like Play-Doh, but when it all looks like arts and crafts, that's kind of not so bad. Art style looks fine. I can't really tell what the gameplay is going to be. It's got the cute animal sidekick. Looks like... Okay, there we go. Some actual gameplay. Looks like it's going to be the Assassin's Creed segment where you're climbing up the walls, right, to try and get to assassinate people, but for an entire game with different mechanics you can use to get new handholds and whatnot. Kind of like it. Interesting. Run along the walls. Okay, so it's just appears to be a game that is entirely that Assassin's Creed thing, but expanded out into a game. I'm excited. That'll be interesting. I'd like to check that out at some point. Coming out fall 2023, so that's not too far away from now. And that's basically the entire listing there. And it's interesting to see what's coming out of it. Very interesting. Like I said, this is going to be a very short stream this time around. I just wanted to cover some basics here. I will be coming back later in the day after my tabletop that I've got to run. I will be coming back to do more streaming. I don't know what the other streaming is going to be. But hey, I'll let you guys know closer when that one's coming around. To go back up the lane, let's talk about the Phantom Liberty thing real quick. I hope they tighten up their gameplay loop. I hope they get the gunplay a little more on point. Your tabletop runs? Mine just stands here. Oh man, that's crazy. Yours can stand? Mine only runs and screams. Just runs and screams in circles. I hope that they spend less time worrying about graphics and more time worrying about really cool, crazy story stuff. I will say, in general, I actually kind of enjoy the idea of doing expansions for games, right? And I wish we had more, like, for story-focused games, right? I kind of wish we had more games that would do, like, series of expansions as opposed to releasing a brand new game outright, where the expansions aren't... I would prefer, like, even if it's not associated at all with the story of the main game, but expand the world, reuse your content that you already have to do new things with. That's how I'd personally love to do that. And honestly, in the past, when I've tried to get things together to try and set up studios and whatnot, which never gets anywhere. You know what I mean? You don't have the money for it, you don't have the connections for it, you can't get it off the ground. But that's the kind of thing I would love to do, where it's just you have that, you put a lot of money into your base product, and your base product isn't necessarily going to make, like, all the big money back. But then you reuse assets wherever you can, you reuse your stuff, you recontextualize, expand out the universe, expand out the settings, and then you're able to recoup your loss by making cheaper, smaller experiences using the existing assets, which I think was dabbled in quite nicely by the episodic series for Half-Life, but kind of was lacking in the fact that they didn't have enough different projects for it to keep it going steady and consistent. And they didn't really have they didn't have released the kind of stuff that they did for the original Half-Life, which was like Blue Shift, Opposing Force. They had planned for the, in the Half-Life case, they had planned the Adrian Shepard one. They hired a separate team. They had like a Ravenholm one that was supposed to go out. They had a bunch of little side projects that would have really kind of worked that forward, but every one of them fell through, which is sad. But you get what I'm saying, where it's like, if you have the big thing, like Cyberpunk was a massive money pit, right? Cyberpunk 2077 is a big old pit in the ground where you throw money, and it's never gonna be able to truly make back everything you just spent, right? When you're given that kind of situation, and you've got to do development work to try and keep it looking good, try and keep it actually functioning, and use what you can, it makes sense, at least it would make a lot of sense, to do smaller side stories to try and recoup your loss, where you can do, hey, a side thing, side project, disconnected from the main thing, reuse your assets, reuse this, reuse what we can. There's a reason why I take a lot of inspiration from the movies from the 70s, right? Because a lot of those movies, you'd have a film or TV show gets made, right? Those props, those sets, would get reused, repurposed, reused over and over and over again until you no longer possibly could, so you could try and recoup your losses. And even if a show itself did poorly, you'd be able to reuse as much as possible to recoup your losses and get back to a stable footing where it doesn't matter if the thing busted and failed. We got 7 other projects that did well, and you had like a bunch of small projects, and then you have your one big project that makes the sources for the other stuff. I don't know why people are so averse to that. I think it might be a cultural thing. I'm not sure. But having like the firm, solid base, and then we build off it, and you reuse as much as you can, seems like a good way to go for me. And maybe I'm just crazy in that regard. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm the only one who thinks that if you're gonna make a project that has multi-billion-dollar budget, you should try and figure out any way you can to recoup your loss while still providing good products. Because, I mean, do you know how many indie teams would kill for the visual fidelity of games like Cyberpunk 2077? How many teams you could bring on board and just have it go, alright, here's your guidelines, here's your assets, you're not making new assets, reuse the assets we have here, build a low-budget video game that's a side thing, we've got all the mechanics ready for you, build a side project, basically we're paying you to make a modification for our base game, and we'll sell it at a much lower price, you get your money, and we get pure profit off of selling you the ability to make this thing, right? That way you can recoup so much of your losses. I don't understand why more games don't do that, right? Like, I look on all of these. Almost all of these games, right? Have you seen the DLC for Total Warhammer Works? It all carries from one game to the next. From game 1 into game 2 and 3. Oh, okay, that's cool. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like, if you reuse, reduce, recycle, has more purpose than just, like, physical goods. And budgets are ballooning like crazy. All the damn time. All the damn time. And I will tell you right now, you're going to be able to pay the modder, in many cases, or the tiny studio, less than you will the massive behemoth, because it'll have less operating overhead just by being smaller. And many of them are going to sit there and go, wait, you're telling me I get access to this AAA stuff, I get to use this, I get to do something? Now, of course, in those situations, you have issues with potential brand recognition issues, quality control issues become a thing. It's not like an easy, quick fix. I'm not sitting here saying, this is the quick fix that'll solve all of AAA gaming. What I'm saying is, if you already have it there, if you already have this stuff, you have this big, overblown thing that you need to make your money back, if you've already got a bad reputation, what's the harm in taking some folks who have a good reputation, giving them access to some of your stuff, and using them on a tight enough leash to just make smaller experiences that you can sell on the cheap, and you'll be selling volume. Basically, you'll be having volume over volume of sales as opposed to cost of sales. And you'd be able to get into a better position where you can have, hey, cool, yeah, this only sold like, we only made about $200 million off this in total. Okay, yeah, that's really good for an indie game, but for a professional studio, that's nothing. But hey, that's almost pure profit because all we had to do was pay level designers to move the assets around and writers to throw things together. We have the assets here. We pay a minimal budget to maybe add some small, tiny new assets. Release that thing out for a low price. Congratulations. People buy it in droves. It sells up your main game because people will be buying the main game to get your side games. Or even if you just do it a standalone side thing. Congratulations. You're raking in a bunch of extra money that you wouldn't have to otherwise. Or you wouldn't have otherwise. And you might even have some people who buy the side game who would never want to buy the main game. Or, even better, people who buy the side game never wanting the main game, but then go back to the main game. I realize this sounds crazy, this sounds insane, whatever, but to me it seems like common sense. If you have product that has not sold, rebranding and reselling is not a bad idea from a business strategy. If I have built a set, why shouldn't I reuse parts of that set? The Wild West Desert can be an alien planet. We change the lights out, we change the set lighting, we change some of the props around, bing, bang, boom, congratulations. Oh, hey, wait, we've got 3 projects that we have under the same company that all sort of released roughly around the same time. Well, if we use these products from here, we'll pay some licensing rights to these people who have that stuff, bing, bang, boom. Throw it together, we've got something brand new that didn't need it. It's basically a high-budget asset flip at that point, but at the same time, by getting your quality writers on board and hiring, maybe you go the route of Phantom Liberty and you get a big name in it, right? Like Phantom Liberty's adding Idris Elba, right? That is major money you're spending there. Keanu Reeves is already major money. But you throw a big name like that in as a side, in something that you're already reusing assets where you can. Sweet. Phenomenal. Recontextualize the assets. Reuse the assets in ways that you wouldn't have thought of using before. Maybe you introduce some of that stuff in your main game and add your value proposition without having to actually add cost in your value proposition. I think that long term, that's a much more sustainable, more cohesive business model. Now, guys, I am sorry to end things here. I know I'd love to keep talking with you folks, hanging out, doing our thing. However, I have prior engagements that are required, I believe anyway. Is this the right Tuesday? Let me double check before I actually run off into the woods. Is this the right Tuesday? On the wrong day. Yeah, it is Tuesday. Yep. I'll wait for a response there. But yeah, no. I think that legitimately we are seeing that as game budgets balloon and balloon and balloon and balloon and balloon and get crazier and crazier, expecting higher results, right? As these budgets increase, you're going to have more and more things that'll be required to make profit off of it. And is my idea crazy? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But I think there are certain ways you can just adjust. Like, I mean, back in the day with RPGs, we would reskin enemies, right? Change the color on their armor, change them on this, that, the other, and congratulations, you got a new enemy. Maybe you add some visual effects from here, some color from there, this, that, there. It's not something that you want to fill your entire game with, but sometimes just doing those little bits can be enough. In the case of a cyberpunk type setting, okay, how different is the armor going to look between Corporation A and Corporation B if they're both working from the same source? Well, maybe we've got different patches on it, some other things. There's a standardization in armor, in a way, that you can make use of as well, where you're like, hey, well, we'll change the badges on this, we'll change the logos on some of the vehicles and whatnot, do a minimal thing, and congratulations, we've just added a new group that we couldn't put in the base game because we didn't have the budget. And you build that up. Okay. So, that said, I've been informed that it is the correct Tuesday for my tabletop. I'd like to thank all you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys. Sorry for it being a much shorter stream. It's only about an hour and a half. I will try to come back in later in the day for a longer stream. But right now, I've got to go. You guys have yourselves a wonderful day. Have yourselves a good time. Be nice to each other. Go out there and make the world a better place, because I know you can. I know you're good enough for it. You got this. And even if all these games come out and they're terrible, or they all come out and they're good and you just can't afford it, always remember that there are affordable gaming options you've got. and you don't even have to resort to piracy to get affordable gaming these days. There's indie studios, there's old games. You can buy the AAA games from like 5 years ago and play them on max settings in a lot of cases where you couldn't play the current games at minimum settings. There are so many good games from the golden age of gaming that if you started playing them today, you probably wouldn't finish all of those just the golden age of gaming until you died of old age, no matter how young you are. There's a lot of great games out there, and you can get a lot of great games working really well. Check out places like PC Gaming Wiki. Check out just look on the internet. You'll find a number of different solutions on how to play these older games, and a lot of them, you can get $60 experiences from a few years ago for like $5 if you go on sale. There are ways to still do the extremely cool, like, high-end gaming on a budget, and it's great. It's amazing. All that said, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, wonderful life, and I will see you guys, if not tonight, tomorrow. And we'll have some more fun streams and some fun times. Should be great. As always, I've been HimawariKotetsu, and you guys... and you guys are great, and I have Scuff. It's always Scuff. Everything's Scuff. Scuff forever. Scuff life. Everything is Scuff now. Yeah! No, you're breathtaking!